The desert was quiet that night, too quiet for winter in northern Arizona. Wind scraped sand across the hard ground and rattled the dead branches behind the cabin, as if warning Elias Ward that peace never lasted long in places like this. Elias finished checking the barn, wiped dust from his hands, and stepped inside the small wooden cabin he had called home for nearly 10 years. Everything inside was simple: one bed, one table, one chair, and the iron stove that kept him alive through the colder months. He liked it that way. Silence didn't ask questions. Walls didn't judge mistakes. And mistakes, he had made one too many. He set his gloves on the table, reached for a tin cup, and let out a slow breath. Then came the knock. Just one, sharp, solid, out of place. Elias froze. No horses, no footsteps, no wagon wheels. Nobody should be out here, especially not at night. The knock came again, softer this time, almost hesitant. He stepped toward the door, keeping his body angled, hand near the rifle but not touching it. He pulled the door open. A woman stood in the cold wind. Dust clung to her boots, her cloak, her hair. Her braid had unraveled, and her face was raw from long days of travel. She looked like someone who'd been running from a place she never wanted to see again. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then she spoke. "Cowboy, I came to marry you. I am the Apache girl you loved 20 years ago." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled under the cloak. Elias's heart thudded once, hard. A name rose from the part of his memory he avoided. Naira, the girl who used to meet him near the creek, the girl who laughed at his hat, shared water in the dry season, and disappeared when soldiers forced her people to relocate. He opened the door wider. She stepped inside. No questions, not yet. She sank into the chair near the stove as he handed her a blanket. Her breathing eased in the warmth, but her eyes still carried a quiet fear. Fear worn so deeply it had become habit. "I walked for days," she whispered. "Riders came to my valley. They burned the shelters. I escaped before they saw me. I had nowhere left to go. Except here." Elias listened, jaw tight. He didn't ask why danger always seemed to find her. He didn't ask why she remembered him after 20 years. He just said, "You can stay tonight. Rest." She nodded, fighting exhaustion, and Elias prepared a simple meal. As she ate, he noticed the cuts on her hands, the torn fabric, the way her body stayed tense even in safety. When she finished, he gave her the bed and took the chair near the door. Old habits. He always slept light. Before closing her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you." Elias didn't answer. He just kept watch. Dawn revealed the first problem. Naira sat on the edge of the bed, alert but worn. Elias handed her warm coffee and finally asked what he should have the night before. "How long were you traveling?" 9 days, she said. "I hid during daylight, moved only at night. The riders, they weren't chasing me. They were chasing land, empty land, land they could take." Elias stiffened. Her valley had been empty after sickness and war. His land looked the same. Then she added quietly, "They found traces of me, footprints, ashes. They know someone escaped." Elias didn't show it, but inside he was already calculating distances, tracks, and blind spots. "We'll handle it," he said. "We?" she asked softly. "Yes." They worked through the morning, checking barrels, mending roof shingles, repairing the barn hinge. Naira moved beside him with quiet precision, holding ladders, passing nails, inspecting fences. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't fragile. She was someone who had survived far too long alone. "You built all this alone?" she asked. "Everything you see?" he replied. "You expected no help?" "I didn't." For the first time, Naira smiled. Not a happy smile, but one of recognition. She understood loneliness. She had lived in it too. Afternoon brought the second problem. They were walking back from the creek when Elias spotted it. A fresh horseshoe print in the loose sand. He crouched. "Wasn't here yesterday." Naira kneeled beside him. A scout. They're testing the land. One rider meant more nearby. They returned to the cabin. Elias placed his rifle on the table. "You're thinking of fighting," Naira said. "I'm thinking of surviving," he corrected. "Those men would come this way eventually. You didn't bring this danger. It was already moving." She lowered her gaze, guilt fading slowly. "Elias," she whispered, "if I had stayed in my valley, I'd be dead." "Yes," he said, "you would. And if I hadn't come here, would you still be living like this?" Elias looked at the ground. The quiet hurt differently now. "I would be," he admitted, "and the silence would still be empty." At dusk, the riders appeared. 4 silhouettes on horseback along the ridge. They didn't ride down. They didn't threaten. They watched. Measuring, judging. Elias and Naira stood in plain sight outside the cabin, not armed, not hiding, not running. 2 people standing firm. The riders lingered for nearly 10 minutes, then turned away. Their message was clear. Not today. Naira exhaled shudderingly. "They saw strength," she murmured. "They saw risk," Elias corrected. "Good enough." Inside the cabin, something in the air changed. Wariness softened into relief. "You didn't look afraid," she whispered. "I was," he replied. "Fear isn't the problem. Letting them see it is." Naira nodded. Then, after a long silence, "Elias, coming here saved my life." He swallowed hard. "And you saved mine from disappearing," he said quietly. The next morning, the ridge was empty. No riders, no tracks. Only winter stillness. Naira braided her hair loosely, her posture steadier. Her breath calmer. "They won't come back," Elias said. "No," she answered. "Not after seeing we weren't alone." They worked through the morning, mending fences, feeding cattle, checking the roof. Their movements flowed easily, instinctively. Not strangers, not a man and a guest, something closer to partners. She watched the land, then the cabin, then Elias. "This place saved me," she said. "And you brought life back to it," he replied. She looked at him, really looked. "The night I arrived," she said, "I told you I came to marry you. I said it because I didn't know if I'd live long enough to say it again." He stepped closer. "And now? Now, I want to stay. Not out of survival, out of choice." Elias breathed once, slow and steady. "If you stay," he said, "this place becomes your home. Not shelter, not a stop. A home." Her voice did not tremble when she said, "I want that." He took her hand gently, firmly. "We don't need a preacher," he whispered, "or witnesses. We make the promise here." Naira nodded. "I stay," she said. "I stay," Elias replied. Not poetic, not dramatic, just true. The sun set behind the ridge. They stood in the doorway, watching the sky fade into gold, then blue, then shadow. For the first time in years, Elias felt the land breathe instead of closing in around him. "You're not alone anymore," he said. She turned to him with a quiet certainty. "Neither are you." And as night settled over the desert, the cabin was no longer a place of exile. It was home for both of them, at last.